All right, we'll call to order the June 1st, 2015 meeting of the City of Pacifica Planning Commission. First off, roll call.
Chair Campbell,
Here.
Commissioner Brown,
Present.
Commissioner Niblin, Commissioner Cooper,
Present.
Commissioner Gordon,
Here.
Commissioner Evans,
Present.
Commissioner Vadalas. Here.
Okay, next up, a salute to the flag, and I'll lead that. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, on to some administrative business. First, approval of the order of agenda. Okay, Commissioner Brown.
I motion that we approve the agenda.
Commissioner Cooper.
I'll second the motion.
Okay, we've had a motion and a second. Please vote. All right, unanimous passage. Next up, approval of the minutes. But there are none.
There are no minutes.
We are going to move on. Designation of liaison to the city council meeting.
There are two city council meetings coming up. One's this Thursday. I don't believe that there is a liaison needed for that meeting. However, on 6/8, the Harmony Lot 2 call-up is on that agenda, and so you may want to select a liaison for that meeting.
Very good. I think that I'll take that one. Thank you.
Is that the appeal?
Yes. Yeah. All right. We're going to move things around a little bit from the agendas that we've had before. We're moving oral communications for the public up to the front instead of to the end of the meetings as we've had it for the last few years. So oral communications is the portion of the agenda that's available to the public to address the Planning Commission on any issue within the subject matter jurisdiction of the Commission that is not on the agenda. The time allowed for any speaker will be 3 minutes. And a quick note, what's not on the agenda today is the determination that the Clara Parkway project, part of the 2015 to 2020 capital improvement program, is consistent with the general plan. That is going to be continued to June 15th, 2015. So if you're wanting to speak on that consideration item, we will not be discussing that tonight. I suppose you could speak on it in oral if you wanted to. So that is going to be right now. Now, if you want to speak at oral communications, please fill out a card. There's yellow cards in the back. And I'm going to call some folks. If there's anyone. Actually, all the cards up here are for agendized items, so.
There you go.
Oh, no? Wait, are these? These aren't for something? No. Oh, yeah. No, this isn't on the agenda, right? Yeah, okay. Okay, here we go. Actually, we have 4 cards. Ralph Sizemore.
Yeah, my name is Ralph Sizemore. I'm here to speak about the 505 Dave and Lou's gas station that's being considered for a 7-Eleven. And I think you're talking about putting a sewage storage tank in the shopping center right there. That's basically what it is. You call it anything you want, but it's a sewage storage tank. And now you want to put a 7-Eleven gas store, convenience store there. Convenient, it's right on the corner of the highway, robbery, more crime. People already hang out. There you're going to get more. It's just going to be more trash, pollution. statistics, I looked online, it's higher crime rate for convenience stores. In 2011, according to FBI, there was over 14,000 convenience store robberies. So I think that we need to consider, instead of putting, in the police department don't even want a 24-hour convenience store there. They don't like what they have. They don't want a 24-hour Denny's. They didn't like Denny's being there that was 24 hours. And we're talking about putting a 24-hour convenience store. I think there needs to be considered to put something else, because who's going to take care of the surrounding area? Dave used to police the area a lot. He would clean the bus stop areas. He would pick up all the garbage. He would walk all the shopping carts every morning between 5 and 5:30 to Safeway, take them back to Safeway that people would leave over. And I don't think anybody's going to be doing that. You need to find somebody who's going to be responsible, take care of the area. And I don't think you get that with chain stores, and you just get workers there who just come in there, punch in, punch out, and don't really care about the environment. And you're asking for more crime, more just bad area. This is where you want to bring the area up. You're not doing much to bring it up by if you let a 7-Eleven come in there. And you got to consider all the residents that live on Arguello and the whole surrounding area. Anyway, that's about it.
Thank you. Next up would be Chris Redfield.
Good evening, Chris Redfield, Arguello Boulevard. Regarding the same property, first I'd like to thank the Naninis for being excellent neighbors and community supporters for many decades. That's going to be a missed business. Second, I can't believe that any public official with common sense would entertain the idea of putting a convenience store in that location, especially a 7-Eleven. Safeway and Lindemar Center retailers less than 500 feet away. Quick Stop on Crespi is 1,000 feet as the crow flies. I don't see any reason to take business away from those successful businesses. Alcohol is a major youth problem in Pacifica. I seriously doubt that Pacifica Police Department would endorse the idea of additional access to alcohol in Lindemar. I know of no less than 4 incidents of suspects eluding Pacifica Police Department, hopping backyard fences into the neighborhood. Offenses range from strong arm robbery to traffic warrants. Those stem generally from Lindemar Center after hours. The potential for an armed robber or shoplifting attempting to elude arrest by hopping backyard fences is very real and has occurred in the past in Lindemar. More trash is not what Pacifica needs. Sorry, but I believe most 7-Eleven customers don't care where their wrappers and containers wind up. This sends the wrong message about Pacifica, as smoking products, cheap alcohol, lottery tickets, energy drinks, and nutritionally poor foods account for, a large portion of their sales. I strongly urge you to tell 7-Eleven to look elsewhere. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, Dan Stegging.
Documents.
Thank you for hearing us today, Commissioners. Now, I don't want to be that guy that tries to tell a room full of lawyers what the best evidence rule is. But for the 1 or 2 of you there that aren't attorneys, basically it means that if I can prove the intent of the original Planning Commission using original documents from the 47-year-old archives, microfiche, inter-office memos, landscape plans, then I win. I win over all of 7-Eleven's applicant verbiage. I win over any current city employees' memories. I win over conjecture. I win over, we'll have to get back to you on that. We heard 7-Eleven didn't have a laundry list of conditions on their original permits, but they did. The Planning Commission wanted 7-Eleven landscape to exactly match the landscape on their permits. I'm going to quote a letter from the Office of Mayor Nick Gust in 1969 where he says, "For the life of the use permit." And we know explicitly that they wanted every single sign approved because in an interoffice memo from the chief building official, Philip W. Mayo, he specifically says that, and they talk about that in July 3rd, 1972 Planning Commission meeting in which they discussed that. Both locations have historically been in violation of their permits and remain so to this very day. The planning department can't babysit them. That's not their job and never has been. When people weren't looking, 7-Eleven cut down all their trees and converted into parking to landscaping. No permits, no penalties. What's most important is the Planning Commission never intended Pacifica 7-Elevens to have either 24-hour service or gasoline pumps. They voted on it specifically and turned it down unanimously in a Pacifica Planning Commission meeting on July 3rd, 1972. I'm the guy who's going to be most affected by Dave and Lou's becoming a 7-Eleven. My backyard will be 3 feet from their wall, and my house will be less than 30 feet. When you take a 28-foot concrete wall with a 3-foot setback, put a mandated security system on that and 24/7 lights, it starts to look like a prison backyard, a lot more than a backyard on there. Loss of privacy, loss of ocean view, loss of mountain view, loss of Pedro Point view. Maybe I'll gain some incessant whine from compressors of refrigeration like New York City shut down last month. The Pacifica Planning Commission never intended 7-Eleven to have 24-hour service or gasoline pumps. They unanimously turned them both down in the July 3rd, 1972 meeting. Don't be fooled when someone shows you a pretty picture and tells you this is the only way to the future. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next, Virgil Morse.
Good evening, Commissioners. Thank you for your time. I'm also here to speak about the 7-Eleven, and I wanted to give props to Dave for the great job he does of landscaping, keeping the area clean, and I believe that this is a radical change from the business that is there currently. For a 24-hour business that's going to generate litter, it's not going to be picked up like Dave takes care of it. Dave's been a great proprietor in the city of Pacifica. It would be awesome if we could find a better fit. And I am concerned about the litter, the 24-hour operation, and that's really about it. And it is very close to residences. And I thank you for your time.
Thank you.
You are welcome.
Next up, Betty Duran.
Good evening. I was at last week's May 18th meeting of the Planning Commission. If you don't know, because sometimes, honestly, you don't know what's going on in your neighborhood, I need to tell you. The process of dismantling the Chevron station at 700 Hickey has begun. It began this past weekend. I'm somewhat concerned because an appeal has been filed regarding this proposed site. I know because I filed that appeal. Further, as I go back to the beginning of the year looking at Planning Commission meetings, I was astonished to see that the public hearing notices information in all cases had been mailed to at least 28 to 33 surrounding property owners, and in one case to 108 property owners. In our case, it was mailed to 9 property owners. Frankly, many of the neighbors are feeling abandoned. Excuse me. Something went very wrong. And I'm just really perplexed. You can see how upset I am. I'm not the only one. All of the people involved in this process, especially those that are residents of Pacifica, and in particular, the people of Fairmont, deserve better. The process you're moving forward with should not be a battle with the outcome in favor of those that have the most resources. The 7-Eleven has chosen to dismantle, that 7-Eleven has chosen to dismantle that Chevron station while an appeal has been submitted. And while these issues are still pending demonstrates its utter lack of concern for the neighborhood, the very folks it hopes to lure into its store. And while they plow ahead, we continue in the process. For those of you hoping that we will just go away, it's not going to happen. Unfortunately, for all concerned, this will continue to be an issue for the city and for those of us residing within the neighborhood and in this city. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker is Laureen Cuneo.
I am also here, a Fairmont homeowner, regarding the 7-Eleven in Fairmont, where the Chevron gas station was. You know, I was at the last meeting, and as I watched the people on the console, and one fella even said, well, I really wouldn't want a 7-Eleven near me, and he voted for it. What is it? Is it because they're not near you, they're not bothering your homes or your space? So let them come in, let them damage everything, let them bring the property down. I don't understand it. And Fairmont Association I'm upset with too. I want to know where they are at. I'm sick of it. You know, just shove it to us. Put it under the rug, pass it, let it go through. What do they care? What do they know? They don't live there, we do. But yet, he wouldn't want one near him. No, no. And he said it has to be on the record. But, you know, if you're not there, if you're not living by, if you're not hearing the noise, the sounds of trucks coming in, delivering things, if you're not there with the lights and the look of it after a while, they are not a good neighbor. Be careful. You might have one near you someday. See how you like it. Thank you.
All right, seeing no more cards, I'm going to close the, oh, one more. Sorry. Did you come up and speak? I just don't have a card, I don't think. Can you fill one out too? And state your name.
I'm Pauline Gonzalez, and I live at Arguello Boulevard. And I'm against the 7-Eleven because it will generate a crime atmosphere. We had at gunpoint at McDonald's a robbery there. They robbed everyone in the office, so that's one of my main concerns. And we have 6 people live in my home, 3 generations, and they are against the 7-Eleven convenience store. For the 20-hour service, we also have the Quick Stop, which we've had, and they seem to be very successful. And so I don't think we need another 24-hour service, convenience store. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, seeing no more speakers on this or any other topic, I'm going to close oral communications. Before we move on, just so I don't forget later, the 7-Eleven that is going to be going in replacing Dave and Lou's, is that something that's going to come before us?
Yes, it is. It has not been agendized yet, but it will be coming before the Planning Commission.
Thank you.
I wanted to note that the 7-Eleven that was on the agenda that many people have just commented on was appealed. It will be heard by the City Council. I will probably be able to get a meeting date on the agenda tomorrow, so there'll be more information that I can provide to the Planning Commission after tomorrow.
Thank you. Who's, okay. One thing, Commissioner Brown.
It only took me a year to figure it out, so.
Yeah.
There you go. I'd just like to ask, is there a notification plan to address the concern raised that only 9 folks were notified about the agenda item last time?
Yes, so the requirement is that we notify property owners within 300 feet of a project. I can find out if there was a mistake. I don't know that there was, but if there was, we can certainly make sure that that's corrected for the city council hearing. Starting actually today, we're implementing the council or the planning commission's direction to notify residents, not just property owners. So property owners will continue within 300 feet, will continue to be notified, and will be notifying residents within 100 feet. So this will be consistent with the coastal zone process, so that we'll have one process throughout the city. And so residents that are nearby a project will also be notified.
Great, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Now, this is not an agendized topic. I'm going to, Commissioner Gordon, this will be the last comment or speaker I take on this issue.
Yeah, I withdraw I withdraw the light, yes.
Thanks, I'm getting nervous. Okay, there are no consent items, so we're going to move on straight to the public hearings. I think, oh, wait, I'm sorry, I'm skipping ahead. Staff communications.
I will do staff communications at the end.
We'll have the end? Okay. Oh, yeah, that's right, we move things around. Okay. Public hearings. First up, special use permit, UP 45-15, and minor modification, MM-162-15, filed by Virgil D. Capetti, applicant, on behalf of the Missionaries of Charity, owner, to convert a duplex into an institution of a charitable nature associated with the adjacent nursing home and increase the second story by an addition of 800 square feet within the rear setback at 164 Milagro Drive. The recommended action, recommended California Environmental Quality Act, otherwise known as CEQA status, recommending that as a categorical exemption, and the proposed action is to approve as conditioned. Staff report, please.
Good evening, Chair Campbell and Commissioners. I'm Catherine Farbstein, Assistant Planner, and I'm the case planner on this project. Before you tonight is a project consisting of converting a duplex into an institution of a charitable nature at 164 Milagro Drive, which requires approval of a special use permit. In addition, a second-story addition that encroaches into the rear setback is also proposed, which requires approval of a minor modification. The owners of 164 Milagro Drive are the Missionaries of Charity, and they operate the next-door residential care facility called Gift of Love at 160 Milagro Drive. The applicant is Virgil Capetti, and he's here tonight. Approval of a special use permit is necessary to allow the conversion of the duplex into a building to provide living quarters for the nuns that operate the residential care facility. The building at 164 Milagro Drive would be considered an institution of a charitable nature for the housing of the nuns. I should mention here that the site is zoned R2, was originally constructed in the 70s as a duplex. Two special conditions of approval, number 2 and 3, are recommended by staff to ensure that if the building is converted back into a residential use, such as a single family or a duplex, a building permit is required, and that the institution of a charitable nature is limited to just the proposed use before you tonight. Approval of the minor modification will allow the second-story addition to be 18 feet instead of a 20-foot rear yard setback as required, and will have the same setback as the existing first story. So in other words, the existing house already has a setback of 18 feet, and this would go directly above that. The subject site is on a corner lot across from the fire station, and extending the living area into the rear setback by 2 feet will provide better use of space to create 2 bedrooms and a bathroom proposed for the new upstairs by the Missionaries of Charity. That concludes my presentation.
Thank you. Questions for staff?
I'm okay.
Okay, Commissioner Cooper.
I have one question. The question involves ADA access. Does it change at all from an R2 to a charitable use, whether or not there's any ADA provisions that fall into place?
I believe this project is partway through plan check, so that's being addressed by the building official.
Okay.
And I will follow up with her.
Great, thank you.
All right, Commissioner.
Thank you, Chair. Just a quick question. With this changing over to a different type of property, the zoning's not an issue then? The R2 zoning won't be an issue about going from a duplex to a I don't know what you'd want to call it.
It's a special use is allowed in any zoning district and general plan designation.
Okay.
But there's certain types of uses, one of them being this institution of a charitable nature.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Evans. Commissioner Brown.
Beaten to the punch by Commissioner Evans. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay, at this point, if the applicant would like to come up, you have 10 minutes to discuss your project.
Virgil Caperi. The project is just to remove an existing kitchen, which when they bought this property way back in 1997, is a duplex. And now it is being utilized as the residential home of the missionaries of charity, who are also having to serve the gift of love on the other facilities that they own too. So they sleep here only. So you're granting this permit, special use permit, is not in any way going to convert this into an institution, because it already is being used as a residential only for the missionaries of charity as they work in caring for the sick in their facilities called the Gift of Love. Sister Maria Concepcion here wants to speak before the commissioners as well, and also Sister Samiti.
Good evening. My name is Sister Maria Concepcion, and I think Sister Sumit will be shy to talk to you on behalf of the Missionaries of Charity and the residents that we serve. And this gift of love is run free of charge, and we are the one that personally take care of them. So we only need this project to be extended, our home to be extended. We're just non-sleep because of space need of the sisters, kind of a little bit more privacy on us. There's 12 of us in this building. The way it's made up, because being a duplex, there are many spaces that we cannot really use. The whole garage is really not a place for us to sleep. Then the only thing that really possible for us structurally is to have a second floor right above the prayer room that we use. So that's what we are asking you for, if you could kindly grant us this request, and may the Lord bless you. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. If any members of the public would like to speak on this matter, please fill out a card in the back. We have one coming. Mr. Matthews. I. Matthews.
I'll bring a date with me. My name is
Isabel Matthews.
This is Isabel Matthews. I'm Mark Nicodemus, and we live at the 64 Edgemar property south of the 164 Malagra Mission of Charities. We're coming here this evening to speak about this development. It's a two-story building in the site. The one-story attachment at the rear is where they want to add the second story. Sister just spoke of the privacy reason they're wanting to put it in the rear, because of course the fire station's across the street. This is what we're here to speak about. It's because the rear of this property is adjacent to the side of our property, where our windows look out onto the area. So we've been there for 30 years. I see the sisters have been there almost that. And if we look at the site development, they have 5 windows with the bathroom window, 3 of which look directly into our windows if added. At this point, there's no windows looking at our property at all on the southern part of this property. So I guess our concern is they are going to add windows on the east and west side, and that maybe the Planning Commission could look at the 2 or 3 windows on the south side and see maybe they could be smaller, maybe they could be developed in a different fashion. I think it was Robert Frost that said, good fences make good neighbors. The sisters have been nothing but great neighbors for us. They talked about their privacy. I think our privacy is a concern also with this development. So if you can just take a point.
We're not concerned, I mean, we certainly understand that they need to have more space. That's not the issue. What the issue is that as you're looking at us, that's what we'll be looking
directly into them.
Windows. A window I have is it's almost a 5
You blew your
foot, or, it's a 4-foot large window that I have that faces the street now. And of course it faces the building as well, but it's lower. So now, if it's higher, the way it looks like the windows will be looking directly across at them as they will be looking directly across at us. So when we saw the picture, it's hard to tell, when we were talking to Catherine, to see how large these windows are going to be, and we were seeing if they could perhaps make them, either put them like my husband was saying on the other side, or so that everyone has their house.
Anyway, thank you, and just like I say, our only concern is the same privacy they have. There is 4 windows. I don't know what what you have to have for those bedrooms. Maybe you do have to have 2 windows. I don't know, understand the legality of that. But if the windows could be looked at as a privacy looking directly into our property as well as us looking directly into theirs. Thank you for your time, gentlemen and ladies.
Can you stay up just for one moment? We have a commissioner with a question for you, if you don't mind. Commissioner Cooper?
Where's that coming from? Oh, there you are. Hi.
Thank you, Chair. What side of the building are you speaking of? Are you speaking of
The south side
South side?
of the building is directly, we look directly into the south side of the building. At this point, there's no windows that we see from the south side. There's 2 windows that were below grade. That's a totally different grade than we are.
That's like the first level. What's there now?
What's there now is actually below grade, which we don't even see because there's a wall there. I don't know if that's illustrated on the
Because we're higher.
map, but we're probably, I don't know, if we're 20 feet higher than they are.
So I see 2 windows being added along with a bathroom window.
Yeah, so that's 5 on the south side. That's the part we look directly at.
So you're counting the panes as a window, correct? There's really 2 windows. There's 5 panes of glass.
Yeah, there's 2.
On the south side, you're saying 5 panes of
Yes.
glass? Oh, okay. I guess if it's a sliding window, I
Yeah,
guess.
2 windows, 5 panes of glass.
Okay, thank you. Was there any other questions or?
No, I just want to make sure I got the elevations correct on your.
Okay, thanks so very much.
Great, thank you for indulging our questions. Yes, you may.
I was going to ask you a question anyway, so.
You may come up
address
and.
that.
Go ahead.
It will be duly noted that we will take due consideration of the concern of the neighbor, and we will can also change those into high windows, so there won't be any issue at all.
So how high would you, sorry, Chair.
No, Commissioner Cooper, go ahead.
Thank you. Sorry, Chair. So how high would you make the windows?
Yes.
So you would make them at what elevation?
We can, so that they will not be within eyesight.
Okay.
There won't be any window looking down onto the property, although the property of the neighbor is higher than the Milagro Missionaries of Charity property, but we will take that into consideration, and we will continue to be good neighbor with them.
All right, thank you.
Okay, I'm going to bring this back to the commission for some deliberation. Anybody want to start? All right. Commissioner Cooper.
Thank you, Chair. First of all, I'd like to commend the services that the charity does. I think it's great for our community, and I think they provide a valuable service to the people out there. You know, for the commission, I think that being a good neighbor obviously is speaking with these, the folks that live next to them and raising those windows to an elevation or even putting a fritted glass into the panes would certainly take care of any of the view. So what I would propose is to put the windows at a higher elevation, say 5 feet off the ground or 5, 6, and have a smaller window so there is no direct view into the neighbor's lot.
Okay, and just real quick, we're talking like clear story windows, maybe? Is that what we're kind of?
Yeah, either clear story windows or a fritted glass pattern. So they're opaque, so you allows the light through, but it doesn't allow the visual portion through.
Okay. Let's see, Commissioner Bauderlos.
I have a question for staff. If they raise the window height, does that affect the fire code and ingress and egress?
That's a good question. I did speak with the concerned neighbors earlier today, and I was able to contact CSG, and they'd actually started a plan check on this project, so I talked to the plan checker that was most familiar, and he said because there are windows on the other sides, one's facing the street and one's on, I would say, the back side, that they were fine in terms of the emergency egress, so. Good
Thank
question.
you.
Okay, Commissioner Gordon.
Yeah, along the same lines, are we, I'm not sure if we're considering making the windows smaller, but are there requirements in terms of size for, is this a bedroom that we're talking about?
The two windows in question on either side are both bedrooms. The smaller one that doesn't seem to be an issue is actually to a bathroom.
Okay.
As far as the CSG plan checker that's familiar with the building codes, they said it could be a wall.
Oh.
So I don't think there's
no issue
that's
there.
actually what I asked them and got clarification on. So he said doesn't need to have any windows on that side.
Okay, great. Well, I mean, in terms of my view, it sounds like this is all being in the process of being worked out, so I'm open to the compromises that are being proposed here.
Commissioner Cooper.
Just to propose to the commissioners, does it make sense to, rather than put a restriction on here, simply have them work with their neighbor and get concurrence and buy-off prior to approving the project? Or put a condition of approval? Can we do that to a third party?
Well, I don't foresee it being an issue because these parties seem to be able to work things out so well. I wouldn't recommend that type of condition
All right, thank
regularly,
you.
though. I'd prefer to have something more definitive in the condition,
All right, thank you.
but maybe flexible enough that we can approve administrative staff at staff level when they come in with their final building permit. We can approve whatever is worked out between them.
Commissioner Evans.
My question was answered, thank you.
Commissioner Gordon.
So how would we phrase, I'm interested in what you just said, Director. Is there a way that we could create another condition which would put this issue in your discretion in terms of being approved to make sure that everyone's happy?
Sure. Let me give this some thought, and I can maybe craft a condition.
We can say or. We can commit the height and then just say or, director of approval.
Commissioner Cooper has an idea.
For as far as the commission, my fellow commissioners are concerned, we could put a height restriction in here, and we could say it's clear story windows, elevation of 5'6" or above, with fritted glass, or to the approval of our planning director. And at least that would at least put a condition on there, and then they could come up with some sort of solution.
Sounds good.
Commissioner Gordon?
No.
Commissioner Evans.
Thank you, Chair. Not even a question. I just want to thank and congratulate the two parties, neighbors, actually working this out and talking about it before you come before us, because that's really nice. Thank you. And it will be everybody being happy if you've both been there 30 years. Thank you.
I think I'll jump in really quick, and I would like to also express that sentiment. It's really nice to see the neighbors voluntarily working things out. Also, Commissioner Cooper's idea, I think, was a good one, and I'm seeing nodding heads in the audience, too. I think that I'd be willing to entertain a motion with something like that in it. Anyone else? Okay, Commissioner Cooper.
I'd like to make a motion for approval. Move that the Planning Commission find that the project is exempt from CEQA approved special use permit UP 045-15 and modern modifications MM-162-15 by adopting the attached resolutions for the purpose of conversion of the duplex into an institutional use of charitable nature to assist the residential care facility next door in a second-story addition within the rear setback at 164 Malaga Drive, including conditions of approval in Exhibit A, incorporate all maps and testimonies into the record by reference, including an additional condition that says the windows facing the south side shall be 5'6" or above with fritted glass or at the height and restrictions on approval of the planning director.
All right, Commissioner Gordon.
I'll second that.
All right, we've had a motion and a second. Please vote. All right, that passes unanimously. Congratulations, you have an approved project. Anyone aggrieved by the action of the Planning Commission as 10 calendar days to appeal this decision in writing to the City Council? Okay. Our second public hearing item tonight.
Wait. Before we
One moment.
go forward, I need to recuse myself from this deliberation because I do have the parcel for sale, which is adjacent to this one.
Thank you, Commissioner Battlehouse. Okay, second item is interpretation of Planning Commission Condition of Approval number 18 of Resolution 897, filed by Michelle and David Garcia, owners, for a new single-family residence at 650 Corona Drive. The proposed action at issue to clarify the intent of the condition. Staff report, please.
Good evening, Chair Campbell and Commissioners. Again, I'm Catherine, and I am the case planner on this project as well. Before you tonight is a request for a clarification on condition of approval number 18 for the project at 650 Corona Drive, which was approved in July of last year. The project consists of a single-family dwelling with an access road that extends Corona Drive on public right-of-way and a driveway on private property. The condition of approval from the Engineering Division states an encroachment permit must be obtained for all work within the city right-of-way. All proposed improvements within the city right-of-way shall be constructed per city standards. The different code requirements have been identified in the staff report. The applicants have proposed a paved width for the Corona Drive extension of 20 feet and provided a letter of explanation included in the staff report. Engineering staff is here tonight to provide technical expertise regarding the paved width of the road and other right-of-way improvements. In addition, engineering staff will discuss their determination regarding the condition of approval. The owners and applicants of the project at 650 Corona Drive, Michelle and David Garcia, are also available tonight. I will turn the presentation over now to Ray Dungeness in our Engineering Division.
Good evening, Chair Campbell and Commissioners. I'm Raymond Dungeness with the City of Pacifica Engineering Division. The original Corona Drive was dedicated with a 50-foot right-of-way as part of the Lindamar No. 8 subdivision approved by San Mateo County in July 1954. A portion of the private land beyond the end of the original Corona Drive was granted to the city in 1962. This strip is also 50-foot width and extended the right-of-way approximately 200 feet beyond the original subdivision. This extension provides access to two other adjacent properties. The city policy and standards at issue tonight includes the city's Complete Street Policy of 2012, Pacifica Municipal Code Section 10-1.903, and Pacifica Municipal Municipal Code 9-4.2258. In November 2012, the city adopted the Complete Streets policy to accommodate the needs of all users of streets and roadways, in addition to motorists. The Complete Street policy provides, among other things, that new development should provide a connected network of streets and paths accommodating all modes of travel. This includes bicycle and pedestrian facilities. The Complete Street policy further states that new streets created as part of new development should continue existing street patterns. The applicant's original plans for Corona Drive extension submitted for Planning Commission on July 2014 did not specifically indicate the pave width of the pavement within the right-of-way. Also, during the Planning Commission meeting, former Planning Director White did state that improvements would be built as part of the encroachment permit process. During the encroachment permit plan check process, engineering staff explained the requirements to the applicant for the work within the public right-of-way. Engineering staff initially required a paved width of 32 feet to comply with the city's Complete Street policy of continuing the existing street patterns. However, in working with the applicant and considering that the remaining portion of Corona Drive may provide access to two other parcels, requiring a 32-foot width of the roadway may not be necessary at this time. Section 10-1.903 of the Pacifica, which the applicant referenced, applies to new subdivisions, and this is an existing property that was subdivided many years ago. However, based on Section 10-1.104, even though this subdivision, including the placement of the public right-of-way, occurred in the past, the subdivision regulation may still apply to the existing property, such as the extension of Corona Drive. Pacifica Municipal Code Section 9-4.2258, which is for non-subdivision development in the Hillside Preservation District, as in the case for 650 Corona, requires local streets to have 20 feet of street and 26 feet of street and 6 feet of sidewalk as the minimum standard. Staff believes that at this time that the appropriate width for the extension within the right-of-way should be 26 feet, which is consistent with the Administrative Policy 42 and the HPD requirement. However, the HPD minimum standards also requires a sidewalk along one side, and Engineering Division is asking the Planning Commission to decide whether the applicant should extend the existing sidewalk. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Evans, question for staff?
That's me.
Oh, there was a light. Oh, I forgot to turn off that light. Commissioner Cooper.
Yeah, I have a question. Is, from the planning department's standpoint in the city agencies, is a sidewalk a flexible item for you guys?
That's the dilemma that we have, because if you were to follow the Complete Streets policy, which is the emphasis right now, you have to provide a safe and alternative form of, getting from one place to the other, which includes, providing facilities for pedestrians as well as bicyclists.
So if we're talking the sidewalk, we're not talking curb and gutter, we're simply talking the sidewalk, correct?
That's correct.
Thank you.
But the sidewalk has to be higher than the pavement itself for the protection of the person that's walking.
Commissioner Neblin, was that you? No.
No.
Sorry, I'm still getting the hang of this. Commissioner Brown.
Thank you. Just for clarification, is it the first 110 feet after the hammerhead that we're talking about?
That is correct.
Commissioner Gordon.
Thank you. Question for engineering. So you're recommending, in terms of the street, a width of 26 feet, consistent with HPD, and in terms of the sidewalk, what are you guys thinking in terms of the appropriateness of a sidewalk here? I'm just curious.
There's an existing sidewalk that was extended by the development on 674. It is not 6 feet wide. It is it's 5 foot, I mean, 4.5 feet wide. It's actually consistent with the overall community that's there.
So in terms of, I mean, I understand the primary factor in deciding whether a sidewalk is appropriate there, I imagine, is safety for pedestrians, right?
Safety and the use of pedestrians, to encourage them to walk rather than using the...
Right. And so I guess a corresponding issue is to the extent that you would think that that would be a lightly trafficked area, heavily trafficked area, or moderately trafficked area in terms of cars. Does that make sense? Is that a...
That is one of the considerations. That's why staff is asking direction from the Planning Commission whether they would like to require the sidewalks to be extended or not.
And so this street here, once it's extended, that would be a dead end? That with a maximum, it would be serving a maximum of 3 parcels? Is that right?
That is correct, unless, unless subdivisions are done or whatever like that, of the existing parcels, because the parcels are big.
Mm-hmm.
Just to follow up on that, and I wasn't at the meeting that this was discussed prior, so apologies to my commissioners if this was discussed already, but if this paper street were taken to its logical conclusion or taken to the maximum it could be taken, where does it end ultimately?
It ends where it's shown on the map that you have there.
Okay.
Yeah, that's where it ends.
Okay.
I'm confused. What do you mean by that? It ends?
It ends at the Garcia property.
It ends right here.
Right, but, okay, is there a possibility, I guess what perhaps Commissioner Campbell's trying to ask, and I have the same question, is if it was continued, is there a chance that, is there a possibility that it eventually will be built out and connected to a larger street? Or is this as far as it's going to go?
Given the current parcel configuration, this is as far as it goes. If there was a future subdivision to subdivide, say, the Garcia or other lands, or it would have to go through the Garcia lands, that would require a discretionary approval where the city could condition the roadway section and make it more of a standard section if it's going to serve more lots.
Okay, that's very helpful.
So it's just basically a cul-de-sac at the end here. And as far as I know we've had the cul-de-sac issue before, the fire trucks, things turning around, is that an issue or has that already been?
Well, the hammerhead that you see is going to continue to remain there. And so the fire department has determined that they are able to use that turnaround for the Garcia residents.
Great. Commissioner Cooper.
Just to refresh my memory, I think this came before us last year. This is the area where we had an issue with fire access and the width of the drive. Is that correct? And we talked about the improvements in this area before. Okay. All right. Thank you.
Commissioner Neblin.
Thank you. I kind of wanted to ask a question at a meta level. Not having been on the commission as long as some of my colleagues, I'm sort of curious about the process of coming and asking the commission for, I guess, interpretive guidance with respect to matters that have already, been before us. Is this a standard process? I mean, on some level, I'm just sort of curious about sort of where it is that we ultimately just sort of defer to staff's interpretation of, the actions we take and why it's coming back in this particular instance as opposed to just standing on the work that staff has done.
I think that the part of the reason is that the condition could have been more clear. It could have said specifically what the section requirement is or was going to be, and but it referred to standards, and the standards right now are conflicting, and so that is why we're coming back for some direction.
Just in my experience, in working in government for a long time, I mean, it's not uncommon that we have to reconcile conflicting standards, and it's a little unusual that you go back and ask at least in my experience, that you go back and ask the decision maker, to reinterpret. Not that Again, I'm myself of the view typically that staff is, their interpretation's entitled to some significant deference. So I'm just sort of curious about the process and whether this is something that's done with some frequency.
And part of it is that some of these standards that are in conflict specifically state the Planning Commission may make an exception. And so what we want to know is, did the Planning Commission make that exception? That is something that is unclear to us when we go back and look at the record.
I'd be interested to know if anybody really was thinking along those lines.
Commissioner Cooper.
Oh, I didn't push my button, but I will chime in, and you know, my recollection was we asked this very specific question of upgrading that street to city standards, and I thought that's what we agreed to. But
Commissioner Gordon.
A couple questions for you, staff. When you said you wanted to see if we were going to make an exception to what?
So there is the subdivision section, which states that the Planning Commission can determine that because of specific reasons, topography and otherwise, that it would be justifiable to construct a street section that may still be safe, of course, but maybe less than what would normally be required, say, on a flat surface. So that is what we want clarification on.
So you mean whether we were intending to make an exception to the required 26-foot width as required by the HPD? Is that what you meant?
So no, I'm looking at section 10-1.903, Streets and Thoroughfares Minimum Standards.
Okay.
Which is on page 3 of the staff report.
Right.
In the middle of the page there. And in the middle of that, that citation, it says that the Planning Commission, except where it can be shown to satisfaction of Planning Commission that topography, et cetera, justifies a lesser standard.
Thank you. And my other question is, I was going to ask this from the staff report, and you mentioned it again, and I'm confused. It says, due to conflicting sections of the municipal code, and I'm wondering, what sections are actually conflicting as opposed to just being vague?
So that is the one I just mentioned, and then the HPD section, which says that the street section shall be 26 feet wide plus a sidewalk.
I see. So, okay, so we've got 10-1.903 saying if we want to make an exception, it's up to us. And then we've got another section saying, an HPD saying, it shall be 26 feet wide.
Yes.
And so those are the two that are on the table for us. Okay. I'm just trying to get clear on the scope of our discussion.
Thank you. So you're not reading, the city's not reading the section 10-1-903 in a way that you're saying this applies even in HPD, where HPD says 26 feet. But you're saying this would give us the authority to move below 26 feet in HPD? No. Did I get that wrong?
No, I think you're hitting the nail on the head, and that's wherein lies the problem, is that, you know, often this isn't unusual, but we try to avoid these types of internal inconsistencies within a document, but that is what we have here.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Evans.
Thank you, Chair. Just to get real clarification for myself on this, number one, which side is the existing, you say there's an existing sidewalk currently. Is it on the side with the, I'm guessing on the side with the houses, side of the street with the houses?
Right.
And currently it stops at the end of the house at 674?
By the Hammerhead.
Okay. Second part of the question is, then the properties, the future possible property access for the, I'm just going to use the last three digits, the 110 property and the 360 property on the other side of the street?
Correct.
Yeah. Those are the two properties that would use the road or driveway or whatever you want as access, correct?
That may in the future, yes.
Yeah, right. And yeah, it's not given, it's not written, but may in the future. I guess I'm just trying to get a picture. And that little square area with the angle on one side, that's the city property, correct? The extension of the road. Right in the center there, just past the hammerhead. Is that the city property?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, where the angled line, that is the end of the right-of-way.
Correct. Okay, thank you. I just wanted to get a clear picture on this, so, all right, thank you. Appreciate it.
Commissioner Cooper?
I have one more question. There's only one sidewalk according to this map, correct? On between 690 and 674, the sidewalk only appears on one side of the street, is that correct?
That's correct.
In the development of parcel numbers, APN, the ones on the opposite side of the street, if there was any development, there would be a sidewalk required per building code, correct?
At that time, we will require that side for the sidewalk, correct?
All right, thank you.
Commissioner Neblin? Oh, that's Commissioner Brown.
So it sounds like there's two questions here. One's are we okay with 20 feet versus 26 feet? And then the second one is this, do we feel that a sidewalk is required, or are we willing to allow an exception for that? And I was in the meeting a year ago, and my understanding was that that we approved the roadway consistent with the general standards for the roadway. I do not remember that being 20 feet. And so I'm not comfortable with going less than 26 feet. And I think with respect to the sidewalk, you know, probable traffic and topography, adding that extra 6 feet now, maybe this is a question for the applicant. You know, what would that do in terms of retaining walls, et cetera? I know that we approved retaining walls for this access. I don't remember them being on the right-of-way, though. I remember them being on the driveway. So I guess that would be one of my questions. And then I just wanted to confirm, because I think this was a good point. If APN, the last three, 110 and 360, are developed, they would require a sidewalk? Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. So in my mind, if a sidewalk, if the probable traffic looks more probable, then a sidewalk is required. I'm leaning towards not requiring one at this point.
Okay, I'm thinking it's looking like we might want to hear from the applicant, but if there's more questions for staff at this point, I don't want to cut anyone off unnecessarily. You had one? Okay, Commissioner Cooper.
So if the commission were to go with the standard, they would go with the standard of PMC 9-4.2258 with a 26-foot wide street. Is that correct?
That's what we're recommending, the 26-foot wide street.
Thank you.
Yes. Yes, please.
Yes.
If I may, I can share with you a photo of the existing street as it is right now.
Sure, please, bring it up. Commissioner Gordon.
Yes, I have a question for staff.
Just a minute, Commissioner Gordon.
You got light shining behind it. It's really difficult.
Can we just pass it around?
Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
But that's how it is. That's the existing condition.
All right, while we pass that around, Commissioner Gordon.
Yeah, this is sort of a technical question for you guys. If HPD says you got to have the street's got to be 26 feet wide, an applicant seeking a narrower street, would they need to request a variance in that instance?
They're requesting a narrow, there's no, under the HPD section, there's no at least that I recall reading, there's no section that says that exceptions can be made. So what they're requesting is a narrower section under 10 dash.
1.9003.
Yes, thank you.
So we have no discretion to vary from HPD?
They would need to get a variance.
That was my question. They would need to get a variance.
However, if the planning commission would like, there is an ability under this other section to make an exception.
And here's a question. So the two sections, are they both from the municipal code?
Yes, they are.
Okay, so they're both on equal standing, so one does not trump the other. Okay. Thanks.
Okay, at this point, I'm going to get the applicant up here. The applicant has...
Throw me to the wall.
Yes, please. Clarify things. 10 minutes, please.
Hi, I'm Michelle Garcia. This has been a journey. So basically, when we stood before you almost a year ago and we had this discussion, we discussed in great length. I watched the video again not too long ago. The 20-foot driveway, there was concerns about being able to turn around. And it was to our understanding with the plans that were submitted for planning that we would continue the 20-foot city right-of-way up our driveway and make it 20 feet. This would allow for parking on that driveway because planning was concerned about additional parking, and it would also allow a fire truck to get by. So to our understanding, that is what was approved. Then back in October when we submitted our encroachment permit application, actually it was like 33 feet and all these sidewalks and drains, and we were like, wait a second. Where did this come from? So our first issue was nobody gave us a list of the city standards, which, by the way, I still haven't seen to this day. So do I even know what the city standards are? I don't. But it was a considerable difference in work, manpower, money. So we questioned it. And that's how we've come to where we are now. And through much research and other means, here we are saying, okay, to our knowledge, we all agreed on 20 feet. There is a huge cypress tree that if we made this street 26 feet wide and added a sidewalk, it would have to come down. And it's actually in the neighbor 674's yard. Huge retaining walls would have to go up. You would really have to build back this area to do this. And in our discussion with you, hillside preservation, large cement walls, we were trying to avoid all of this because we do have hillside preservation. We do want to keep the environment looking nice. We bought this property because it is hillside preservation. It's beautiful. We don't want to fill it with cement. The people at 674 don't want it filled with cement. So what we're asking is if you could allow for the, less width of the street, it goes to nowhere. Basically, it goes to my driveway. So no one's going to ride a bike or walk down this, and if they do, they're going to come to a dead end and they're going to have to turn around and walk away. There's absolutely nowhere for anybody. It's like a bridge to nowhere. So we aren't saying we don't want to improve the city right-of-way. Obviously, we do. We have to live there. We have to drive in and out of there. It's our home. We're going to live there forever. So obviously, we're not trying to not do our part, but we clearly don't feel that these crazy city standards really apply to us, and it wasn't really approved. We weren't approving to that, or we didn't get the opportunity at the first meeting to have this discussion with engineering, to have them come back and say, well, this is why, and then you could hear it, and now everybody's going back trying to remember what was said. So at the end of the day, we're asking for the Planning Commission to allow us a less width to the city right-of-way, and no sidewalk, because one's really not required. People are not going to walk down it. If they walk down it, they're literally walking to the end of my driveway where they're not going to be able to go any further. So we tried to work with engineering. We tried to get them to understand where we were. We were told there were exceptions to our project, but didn't know exactly what those exceptions were. And Dave Blackman probably has a little bit more information on that.
So are you done?
No, go ahead. That's fine.
You want me to speak as the clarification applicant or somebody else, or can I just keep going?
You got 10 minutes to split it up any way you want, so.
No, go ahead. Okay.
You've
No,
got
I just, at the end of the day,
10 minutes total.
we're trying to keep that city right-of-way looking as beautiful as it does right now. There's a ton of wildlife, cement walls. I mean, it's really not necessary. You can see that. I can drive my car down it with both doors open, and I still have a ton of room on either side. If you put a 26-foot wide road in there and you have to add sidewalk, it's not 26 feet. Because that sidewalk has to be what, 4 feet? So now you're looking at 30 feet. 30 feet for what? 30 feet to drive my car down the road? I'm going in and out of my home, that's it. And there is clearly plenty of room. So we are asking the Planning Commission to make the exception this time because all of that cement, all of that destruction to the surrounding environment really is unnecessary. Go ahead.
How much time is left?
Done. Come up. Help me.
Do I lose my card time? I don't know how this works.
It's cumulative.
What's that?
You have 5 minutes remaining.
Okay. So we were here a year ago, and we did have a very specific plan of 20 feet, and it sounds unquestionably that the decision of how wide this pavement's going to be is up to the Planning Commission. I believe that's what everybody in this room's agreeing to, I think. I'm not sure. I want to express my frustration. We've gone through a whole year of a lot of staff time, a lot of engineering time. I don't even understand why this is still a question. I built a lot of homes in this town that we've only built 20 feet of pavement in front because that was what the fire department. I built 2 commissioners' homes that only have 20 feet in front of them. I built homes in Pedro Point that have less than 20 feet. But let me just let's skip all that part. You guys all just watch Harmony One build a 20-foot driveway for the lower lot there, and the retaining walls are huge. So we're now in a much steeper area. This is much steeper than what Harmony One has to deal with, just this small section. And if we try to go 26 feet and sidewalks, you're going to see huge walls. We're going to lose that cypress tree. For what? And so I believe you guys have the power to make this decision. I thought we already made this decision. I watched the YouTube video. We laughed at how long we talked about this. We actually defined the driveway as specifically, you can watch the video, from the hammerhead to the garage door. And we talked and talked and talked, and we all agreed at 20 feet. The fire department is happy with this. They signed off. They said this is more than enough. Now, if any other developments come forward, you know, it's actually required by law that they do their share. It's not up to Michelle to prepare for them. So if they need more width at that time, if something else happens, then it's on them. Now, we keep talking about the complete streets thing. The complete streets thing was put in by Arnold Schwarzenegger, and the concept is to make all streets work for all types of modes. So the idea was it's based on that we have this global warming and we need people to be able to walk and ride their bikes. That's what it is. It's clear the purpose of it. It's not mandating cities to do anything except make sure you think about that. So if you think this 20 feet is going to prohibit Michelle from riding her bike or walking out of there, that's madness, you know? And so we also have all those other competing interests, you know, with the hillside preservation. I'm looking how to quote it. Roads should be, okay, so back to this, I'm going to go on the list of things. We were competing with what's called C3 regulations, where the county's like saying, please don't put impervious surfaces, minimize. They say reduce impervious surfaces, consider narrow streets for very low density neighborhoods. This is a very low density neighborhood. So that's one more competing interest we had to deal with. HPD was huge, and HPD says minimize the scarring effects of hillside street conditions. That is the purpose of the hillside preservation. So I don't know why we're even back here. I don't know what, we all agreed on 20 feet. All we want is some clarification, and no one's come up with a logical reason why we want more than 20 feet up there, but the walls are going to be huge, and I don't know if you're asking us to come back with the wall designs for this new idea, but we came with a very, very specific plan a year ago. It was dimensioned out, locations, walls. It had all the V-ditches above the walls. It was incredibly detailed. The engineering department had 6 months of time. They took 6 months to go look through these plans in details. So to say that they didn't look at this as just some concept, this went back and forth, and all these staff members are paid, she's paying $180 an hour for this. And so this has been going on for a year. So I'm getting long-winded, and I'm mostly frustrated that nobody specific in this room, except this process is disgusting. So that's it for me.
There's just a tiny bit of time left.
Oh, gosh.
I just, the part for me is I've been in construction for 30 years. I'm David Garcia. And the crazy part is 49ers Stadium, Apple, Twitter, I've been a superintendent on all of these projects. I don't think I've ever seen something so out of control, just at a whim we change our mind. We have problems on the big jobs. Yeah, PG&E's hard, there's other things, but engineering specifically, we have to start holding everybody to just specific what they can and can't charge people, and following some kind of a rule. And when they come in, when we came in, they should have been here telling us what we need. They weren't even here at that meeting. To come here now is like a year, and this year has been a nightmare. I mean, a week, a month, just constant dragging it around, a nightmare. I built a house in Millbrae 2 months from the port we were at till I was building. This has been a year, and we are like, it's insanity. So it's not like I don't know construction and have an idea of how it's supposed to work. I mean, I definitely have an idea, and I have done it for years. But we got to get some kind of control over it for the next person that comes down this line. I mean, I'm not trying not to preach too much, but we're to the point now where we're trying to think of the next person that comes down the line. Everybody should be here when someone comes in to build a house like this, because there's a lot of property left in Pacifica. They did all these outskirting pieces of property. If engineering's not in here when that process happens, it's insanity. And to come a year later with this, it's getting to be...
It's frustrating.
Yeah, super frustrating.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry about
And
that.
no, and
Sorry
Michelle,
about
David, stay close, because we might have questions for the applicant. And Dave, too.
You go sit down. Of course, go sit down.
Questions? Okay, Commissioner Cooper.
Michelle, if I recall correctly, the retaining walls that we were talking about were the retaining walls that were next to your house, farther up the driveway. And the reason that the fire department wanted to get around your guest parking spaces, and that's where pretty much most of the conversation had. Is that your recollection as well?
Yeah, so when we were discussing it, that it was, fire wanted to make sure that they could get up there, but then there was the parking spaces that planning wanted to reassure, that we were sure that they would be there. So with 20 feet, if you park 2 cars like this, the fire truck could still
And we
get
just
by.
got rid of the guest spaces is what we did, right?
No, we
kept
have
them.
them.
We kept them.
We kept them.
Just moved them over or something.
Well, the guests, so, here's the driveway, they're going to park like this.
Yes.
And a truck could still go. We didn't get rid of them, and they will still be on, it's still all there.
And you can see, I don't know if you guys have that picture where you can see the roadway kind of cut now. The damage to some of those areas in that one spot, I personally would love it wide just because it's just more parking. It doesn't hurt my feelings, but to look at how much damage it does to do it, that's where it looks kind of a little off. So that picture kind of shows, if you can see that one cypress tree, that would be that's where the sidewalk would go. The sidewalk would lose that giant cypress tree for the sidewalk, because that actually is not on the neighbor's property, it's on the right-of-way.
It's partially in the neighbor's yard.
Just a limb. The majority of it is in the right, that's basically the sidewalk location. And the opposite side, and the 2 properties that you come into, if we do build a 15-foot wall to achieve that width,
They have to knock it
they
down.
got to cut the wall out to get to their property
Because they
eventually.
have to turn up to go. Those properties are above us, so if you put any kind of wall in there, those walls have to come down. So we're going to pay money to put up walls, and then if somebody comes in, you have to, because you would literally block the entrance to go up there with any retaining wall in the city right-of-way.
We actually, just the cutting we've done has hampered the sale of that end property.
Actually, Planning Commission, the lady that was sitting there, she was showing the property and
And they
said to
can't get
him,
up the
you
hill,
need
and
to make it so I can get up there.
But we've
couldn't get up
only
there.
kind of eased the ground. I mean, what the requirement would be, it's easier for us to see, because of course I see it every day, but for you're trying to take my picture of it. But yeah, you can kind of, just trying to give you the idea of what the street kind of looks like now.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Any more questions for the applicant? Okay, stay close. We might have some more questions in a second. We're going to bring this item back to the commission for deliberation. Okay, Commissioner Gordon.
Thank you, Chair. First, apologies to the applicant. And, there's This sounds like a project that we all have an opportunity to look at what happened and to learn from it. We definitely want to try to have a process where you're not left pulling your hair out. And a question for you guys. So what's the compelling reason to make it the road, the width 26 feet instead of 20? If in a nutshell, if you could just...
The 20-foot clear is what the fire department requires as a clear, you cannot provide, you cannot park because the fire department requires that the width of their travel is about 20 foot clear, should be clear. If you were to look at the standard, lane width for a road, it varies from, 12 feet per each direction, so it's about 24 already. So there's really no room for us to provide for, the pedestrian or whatever to use. So if you were to look at the driveway, that's 20 foot wide for a two-car garage, but normally for a street, it couldn't be because you cannot park like what you said.
So the fire department signed off on the 20-foot width already?
20-foot width clear, meaning that you cannot park, within the 20 feet.
I see. So in other words, if we did a 20-foot, if the road was going to be 20 feet wide, there would need to be like signage that says you can't park here.
That would have to be the case.
Okay. Okay.
Just real quick question, just back to the applicant. Are you understanding of that fact, that if
Well, I hear him
it's
say
20
that-
feet, there's no parking on either side?
But who's going to actually park in that city right-of-way? Like, I know that we wouldn't be parking there, we wouldn't have people park there, we would have people park on our driveway. Like, if you were to actually be there and you get to the end of Corona, there is the road that takes you in there, but who would ever park there? Like, I don't understand how anybody would even park there. You would have to go in and try and turn around. I understand what he's saying, but I would find it really hard to believe that somebody would actually go park right at the bottom of my driveway. And
So let me ask if Dave maybe could answer this one for me, because I'm a little confused as to, and I'll ask the city too. Fire signed off on a 20-foot width as long as nobody parks on the sides, which is that...
Our plan at this moment does not have the no parking signs. Is that correct, Tina? Were they signed off with the existing plans that we have now? That's my understanding?
They did.
They did sign off without without no parking signs. They are okay, they can get 12 feet, they can get a truck by. I am understanding what Van is saying, but they signed off specifically on the plan that you approved that does not, and they're not requiring the no parking. I'm not asking, that may be fine, if we want to add that, if you want to let that go back to the fire department, if they want to add that or something, that doesn't seem like that's a conversation.
No, I'm just trying to get clear on,
They approved the plan that you approved that does not require the no parking signs. And that is my understanding, and I think that's what Tina just confirmed.
Let me get clarity on that. Question for staff. So is that accurate?
So to my knowledge, the fire department has not requested no parking within the right-of-way area. I did not specifically ask them that question, but that was not something that they had indicated.
But did they actually have the plans and consider it and look at it? And it wasn't like it was sitting on a stack of,
No,
like it came
I
up.
actually had a meeting with the fire chief about this project. So yes, they did see this.
Thank you. Commissioner Evans.
Thank you, Chair. No questions, just thoughts. Number one, I do remember the 20 feet when we voted on it that night. There was long discussions, long discussions. And honestly, my feeling is we approved something a year ago. Record, it's on record. Fire department's got the approval on it too. It's kind of like we're going back asking the customer to pay more money for something they already bought, to me. If you go into a store and there's two price tags on an item, one of them's lower than the other one, the store always gives you the lower price, in my findings. using it as a, as far as the sidewalk goes, the sidewalk is, I don't think is needed past there, and if it is needed, if indeed the 2 additional properties, they'll be required to put one in anyway, so why are we putting one in on the other side too? I don't believe it's necessary. I don't believe we should require more than what we approved a year ago. It just is, it seems to me like, and again, I apologize too for all this confusion. I was a little confused when I even saw that it was coming back to us again. So I don't think we should put these people through any more pain that they already have had. I don't want to say ridiculous, but it kind of is, because we've already approved this. And I don't think we should have to redo or recharge or whatever the old question is of getting more money. I don't think that's right. So that's my thoughts.
Thank you, Commissioner Evans. Commissioner Brown.
First of all, kudos for going back to the tape. That's very clever, because I imagine the tape's a little bit more accurate than my memory. And I wholeheartedly agree with Commissioner Evans. I think, 20 feet is what's on the plan. That's what was approved before. I'd like to move on and not revisit this and just approve what we approved before should stand. Thank you.
Great. Yeah, well,
Commissioner
thank you.
Nevlin.
Thank you. No, I agree that if 20 feet is what we approved before, we ought to just move forward with that. I don't necessarily fault staff for their efforts to try to reconcile what was apparently ambiguous, and we'll try to do better in the future to make sure that we don't have ambiguous conditions baked into the actions we take. But it seems to me that the best thing is to go ahead and confirm what we did before and go with 20 feet. I don't myself see a need for a sidewalk at this point, and I don't see, having heard what I've heard, a need for 26 feet of width at this point.
Commissioner Cooper.
I don't necessarily agree with my fellow commissioners. I remember this parcel. I remember this little sliver of area as a public right-of-way. I remember the conversation and asking if this is going to be built per standards. This is an area where it's not just you in this particular piece of parcel. If the other 2 parcels are developed, then they're going to be stuck with this cost. You're the first parcel to develop in this area. It's not fair to the neighbors that they don't have a place to park if someone throws a party. It's still public right away. We still need to enhance the public. I'm very much in disagreement with what's happening at San Pedro Park or San Pedro area, where there's no street improvements, there's no guidelines. It seems that the streets just kind of ramble through the neighborhood. I don't think from my standpoint, from the city of Pacifica, that we should allow this type of thing to happen. Now, I don't think there's a necessity for a sidewalk, but I certainly think there's a necessity for the road extension in this area. To what extent, maybe it's 100 feet, that would service all the parcels within that area, but I certainly don't think that we should compromise the standards for one person and not the standards for the next, because this is going to come up again on these other 2 parcel developments. So that's my opinion.
Commissioner Gordon.
Thank you, Chair. I'm going to disagree with Commissioner Evans on his characterization of the meeting. I went back today and actually looked at the whole meeting on YouTube, and I realized that it would be very easy for us to simply say, you know what, that's what we decided and we got to stick to it. But if you look at the hearing and the deliberations, 90% of the conversation was about they were requesting a variance for parking spaces. The conversation was about parking. It was not about, and the discussion about 20 feet was about the driveway. I'm sorry, but it's not as cut and dry as this is what we discussed. This has been asked and answered, and it's all done, because it's a lot more. If you go back and look at the tape, it's very ambiguous. it's true that the plans that they submitted listed 20 feet as the width of the street. And so to the extent that we approve the plans as submitted, that's a fair argument, but the approval, I think in the resolution says, this project is approved per the plans as submitted, subject to the standards of the city. So the fact that it's 20 feet in the plans doesn't get you, it doesn't answer the question. And so I want to be intellectually honest here. It's not as simple as that. And from my view, we're still, it's up to us about what we want to decide. Our hands aren't tied by a prior decision because that decision didn't happen. Now, I have strong feelings about sidewalks. I live in an area that has very inadequate sidewalks in Valimar, and there's a ton of people walking around, ton of kids walking around. My daughter walks around, and it's not safe. So and in fact, there's a history with, anyway, so I feel very strongly that we should build sidewalks for new construction. At the same time, this is an area where, you got to think about, well, what kind of traffic is really going to be on this road? And I think you do have to balance between, well, to what extent do you want to preserve the natural aspect of this area versus to what extent do you want to pave it over with a sidewalk? Although, as I'm talking, another option is to put in, you don't have to put in paved sidewalks. You can put in like crushed granite or something like that. But at the same time, then that does involve destroying the area. So in terms of a sidewalk, I guess I'm kind of on the fence. I think there's good arguments both ways. And I'm leaning toward not requiring a sidewalk only because there's just, in terms of how much that area is going to be developed, even if it was, I don't want to say worst case scenario, but most developed case scenario, you still only got a couple parcels there. It's just not going to be very heavily trafficked. So I guess I'm okay with no sidewalks. In terms of the width of the road, this is one of those situations where you can find an exception based on circumstances. The circumstances being this is not going to be very heavily trafficked. I guess that's why I was curious that's why I was asking you guys, well, why do you guys think it makes sense to go 26 feet here instead of 20 feet? So I don't know where I'm at at that. I guess my big point was, you guys, we haven't decided anything here, and I do think it warrants, just like, and if you go back to our prior discussion, we really never talked about this issue. We just didn't. So I think it's a good time to talk about it. Procedurally, you guys don't really have a chance to jump in, but I value your feedback, so we can get around it by, I guess I can ask you guys a question and you guys can respond. So Dave, what's on your mind?
I would love to read this. This is called modifications of the requirements for subdivisions. This is section 10.1106. I'll hand it to anybody who wants to see it. They're talking about the street improvements, and it says the planning commission may make modification as, in its opinion, are reasonably necessary or expedient. I didn't know what expedient means. Does anybody know what expedient means? It means if it's convenient or practical for her. It gives you so much latitude. It says right here, you can make this modification, and this serves one home. And when everybody's saying, is this going to be fair for the other two people? It's not fair for her to do 100% of the improvements. When they come forward, if something else needs to be needed, they can take care of it at that point.
Can I chime in right on that note, because it was a great segue. So I don't know if you got the attachment for the conditions of approval for 674 back in 1999, but they were actually required to complete that city right-of-way, but they didn't. And I was advised by engineering that the reason that they didn't have to was because they had to make more improvements to the actual street that their house was on, and so therefore their conditions of approval, this signed letter by the Planning Commission, they never had to complete it. So I'm not saying that I don't want to complete it, but somebody else was supposed to complete it, and they didn't, and now I'm being asked to complete it. I don't have a problem completing it, but I would appreciate it if perhaps maybe we could find some medium ground to where it's more conducive for us, considering that back in 1999, it was signed off by planning conditions of approval that they were supposed to complete this city right-of-way. And I submitted this with my submission to you.
Thank you, thank you. I'm gonna jump in just for a second. I haven't jumped in a while. A couple things. Some initial thoughts. One is, if this were a paper street that looped around to a busy street, eventually, you know, I think I would be of the mind that we would require the full 30 whatever feet all the way across with sidewalks on both sides, the full complete street thing. And like Commissioner Gordon, the no sidewalks really bothers me in some instances, because in my neighborhood, we've had some developers, some builders not put the sidewalks in on blind corners where lots of kids, I don't even get why they don't put sidewalks on. It's just crazy to me. Here, it seems like this is kind of a unique circumstance where it's going to cul-de-sac in a sense. I'm not seeing a ton of through traffic. I'm not seeing those concerns for the sidewalk. I do see that the next property owners in line will probably have to put a sidewalk in. They probably would have had to do that anyway. One thing I wanted to ask was, in my neighborhood, where in a couple instances where there are no sidewalks, and where we had actually an incident where an emergency vehicle couldn't get through, and someone may have actually passed away because the emergency vehicle couldn't get through because of parked cars on either side, which was a big deal in our neighborhood, so I'm really sensitive to this issue because it was a neighbor. The city put in a sign that said no parking within 10 feet of the center line of the roadway. And it's generally worked. Cars don't park on either side for a length of time. And there needs to be a little code enforcement on that. But generally it works. I was wondering if there would be any option like that here where a sign could be posted where no parking on one side, not both sides necessarily, but at least on one side. So just to ensure that an emergency vehicle needs to get through there. I know 12 feet's 12 feet, but you know, just after living in this neighborhood and having experienced the tragedy that happened because they couldn't get through a narrow street up the back of Valimar, I just do not want that on my head. If again, you know, we didn't approve that, thank God, but I don't want that on my head. So is there a way to do that, and would the applicant be amenable to something like that?
I mean, I don't see why it doesn't have to be red. It could be red on both sides, really. Most of the fire truck turnaround area at the end of the street is all red.
He's just asking for signage. Is that what you're asking, Rich?
Yeah, you know the sign. You know the sign, Dave. That it's in the.
Yeah, that's common in Pedro Point and in the Valimar where I live near you. And so it just, the fire department really would like to have 10 to 12 feet to get by. That's why they're okay with this 20 feet. We've extensively had conversations and it's gone in different directions, but they're okay with this. And that extra signage seems like a fine solution.
Cool. Let's see, I've got some more comments. Commissioner Neblin.
Actually, one comment and a question. I wanted to commend Commissioner Gordon's recollection of the meeting. I think that was very helpful to, and it got me to thinking, I think, a little more about my perspective and maybe my comments. I guess one of the questions I had was with respect to the issue of, you know, the possibility that someone might come along later and develop these parcels that are currently undeveloped. Is there a process or anything in the law that would allow for charging back a contribution to later developers who benefit from the same infrastructure, or is it simply a question of first in, you know, bears the cost and that's that? I know sometimes in the context of sewer improvements, there are processes where you can come by and collect from folks who might come in later with respect to some things that are put in.
There are assessment districts whereby, the property band together, but there's a process in doing so. You start with an engineering study and then you come up with the estimate, and then there should be consensus among the property owners before you head into that.
I see. So that's only in the context of a district that's formed pursuant to the government code or whatever, streets and highways, or wherever it's done. Correct. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
You push this button rather than my button.
Well, sorry, Commissioner Cooper.
What buttons you pushing there? I'd like to hear, I hear the applicant, and I know the cost associated with doing infrastructure. That's what we do. Would the commissioners be entertained to perform, let's say, half the infrastructure within this development and then leave the other parcel numbers to do the rest of the development?
Could you clarify what you mean? I'm sorry, I don't think I
There's
followed.
110 feet of improvements that need to be made according to this map. Rather than the applicant taking the full burden of improving this, the entire direction, let's say that they take half of it and then continue with the regular driveway for the remaining half.
I'm confused.
So do you mean like
I thought we were talking about
26 feet for half of it and 20 feet for the other?
Yeah, 26-foot wide, full improvements, curb to curb with sidewalk, and then approve the driveway for the remaining portion.
Before we entertain comments on that, I forgot to also mention that one other thing that I did appreciate was the HPD arguments made, where narrow streets and less infrastructure and not taking out that big tree would be something that would fall in line, it seems, with the HPD. But I just want to throw that out there as well. I forgot to mention that. Anyway, back to Commissioner Cooper's idea. Commissioner, I got to get these buttons right, but Commissioner Brown?
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, so there's a lot of good conversation going on here, and I sort of go back to the comments that were made that this is a hillside preservation district. There would possibly be issues with the retaining wall for the two undeveloped lots, et cetera. And I'm more inclined towards leaving it at 20 feet, but I do think that there should be no parking allowed on either side of that street. Just thinking through what's probably going to happen with development, and nobody's got a perfect crystal ball, but I just don't see this being, it's not a connecting street. I don't see a lot of traffic coming through here. I think that, so I'm more in favor of keeping it at 20 with no sidewalk, and I think that the next homeowners that come in, if they purchase those lots, they'll have to do their share. But I totally understand there's multiple points of view on this. That's just
Thanks, Commissioner Brown. Commissioner Evans.
Thank you, Chair. I also agree that we should stick with the 20 feet. Again, I gave my reasons. I think as far as shares go, if they're doing 20 feet and they wanted 26, they've gone over their share already. I mean, the street, if those other two developments come in, they're going to have to put in, we already heard, sidewalks and curbs. They can add the other feet. I mean, because this couple's already doing 20 feet. I don't understand making them go further. So, again, my thoughts.
Oh, I was about to say there's no more lights, but
Just one quick thing on the uphill side. So I think the cut for the roadway cuts into the hill instead of down the hill to be less obtrusive. Otherwise, if we were to move down the hill, you'd be looking at a giant wall. But that cut will hinder the entrances to those other properties as well. The wall will get higher. So you can kind of, if you can vision that part, that that's the part that I see when I drive by each day. I look up and go, oof, that's gonna be a tough climb, even the way it is now, because grade is down at road level.
Thank you. That makes sense. So if we were gonna I'm starting to kind of count votes here.
It's all loud.
I know. Hypothetical, if we were going to go with 20 feet, let's say the commission ultimately lands at 20 feet with the signage that the applicant seems prepared to agree to. And as a preliminary matter, I'd like to say I really do appreciate the city's arguments here. I mean, I completely understand where you're coming from on this, and it's not an easy call, as you can see by the length of this meeting. But if we were going to go with 20 feet and the signage, how would we structure a motion on that, since we're just clarifying things?
So what I would recommend is that the motion would be structured to reference the subdivision section that does give you the ability to make the exception, and then reference some of the things that have come up in the discussion. So preservation, the issue of the topography, the tree, not wanting to create a lot of retaining walls, et cetera. That's what I would recommend.
Thank you. Commissioner, I don't know whose light came on first. Commissioner Cooper.
I'd just like to remind the fellow commissioners that you can't simply add a 20 feet or 6 feet onto a roadway. It's not built to city standards. You'd have to take the whole roadway out and put curb and gutter in, so it's not as easy as just putting another 6 feet on a road.
Commissioner Gordon.
I appreciate Commissioner Cooper's comments and points of view. The discussion's always deeper when you've got differing points of view. I think, when we make a decision, when we think about the decisions we're going to make on this project, we always have to think about, precedents that are going to be set for other projects. So in terms of, from a planning perspective, you got to think, okay, this project here, what width of the road makes sense for this particular project? If you go against, if you say, well, this is Hillside Preservation District, but I'm not going to follow Hillside Preservation District requirements, I guess I want to be clear, because it's a very good, I think we all think that's a great little, piece of the municipal code. We want to be clear about why we're going to be varying from it. And in this case, I think there are really good, reasonable, rational arguments to, in fact, you'd probably be furthering the interest of the HPD by going against the 26-foot width, since you're going to be saving a tree, you're going to be, in this case, smaller seems to be a very good idea. I live really close to the area that Commissioner Campbell was talking about, where somebody, I'm pretty sure they died. The road, it's Berendos, and it's in Valimar. It's narrow. There was cars parked. I think they were only parked on one side, but it was a big truck. And emergency vehicles couldn't get back there, and I'm pretty sure I think they died. Anyway, it happened a couple years ago, and now if you go up Berendos, there's signage all and says you can't park there, period. So ironically, it's for your safety. So the idea of not doing 26-foot width is really unsettling to me, because I've seen, it can have very serious consequences. And I share Commissioner Campbell's unsettledness with approving a road that's narrower. But on the other hand, fire signed off on it, and signage could address that issue. So
how far did the road go up that you were, the part, is it like a long stretch that got up to the house, or was it multiple houses up the street?
Oh, Berendos it's like 8 or 9 blocks long.
Oh, and they got held way down the hill. That's the only difference is it's probably about 90 feet.
Yeah, but what if
Right,
you can't get?
right.
They can't get to me. I'm gonna come back for everybody.
So I guess given the fact that I think HPD would be served by going with a smaller road, I'm in favor of 20-foot width. And I think it also, given the fact that there's very little through traffic on this road, I'm also in favor of no sidewalks. So I think I'm coming down with what I think Commissioner Brown's position, or maybe some others too, but I think that's where I'm at.
And the signage until another person upgrades the other properties would be.
Signage there's got to be signage, yeah.
I mean, the signage may survive even if someone comes in and puts in a sidewalk, the signage may survive. I mean, it's going to be case dependent when we get to that point and see how it's all working out. But it may go. It's going to depend.
Saying
That's great.
until the road, if and when it was made.
Yeah, but it doesn't matter to us.
Yeah. So I really do appreciate the applicant's flexibility. Okay, I think we're going to just deliberate and hopefully wrap this up. Let's see, I had Commissioner Neblin.
Well, I think Commissioner Cooper's light was on first, but I'll go ahead and state my piece on this. I think I'm in the camp that's just been recently articulated with respect to the 20 feet and the and no need for sidewalk for the reasons that have been that others have already expressed. But I do want to be real clear. I again think that staff's position on this was a reasonable one. I think there was ambiguity. I think that they appropriately addressed the ambiguity. So by expressing the view I'm expressing right now, I in no way want to suggest I thought staff's position on this was unreasonable. I think that they were reading things in a very reasonable and appropriate way.
No, I'd agree with that wholeheartedly. Thank you for expressing that. Commissioner Cooper.
I also agree. I think that those are very thoughtful reasoning behind requiring this. I just would remind that this is city property. It is not private property. And I would certainly hate for something terrible to happen because there's only 20-foot driveways and it doesn't meet city code.
Yeah, I appreciate that comment as well, and I expect that hopefully we have some comfort in the fact that the fire department gave a thorough review of this before they signed off. Okay, so I guess if anyone else, does anyone else want to make a motion?
I don't know if I want my fingerprints on this.
You're going to make me make it. No.
You're our motion drafter on these complex ones.
Not me, not anymore. Oh, I'm so sorry.
Say a lifeline.
So sorry.
Boy, was that a sign.
I broke my phone today too, and it rings.
All right. Okay, I'll make a motion. Help me out. I'm going to make a motion regarding 650 Corona Drive, APN number 022-210-080, that pursuant to the Planning Commission's discretionary authority under Section 10-1.903, pertaining to streets and thoroughfares, that provides us to the discretion to deviate from the, in this case, HPD, Hillside Preservation Ordinance, requirements of a 32 to 26 foot wide street, that we approve a public right-of-way here of 20 feet in light of a number of factors, including the HPD goals of a narrower street, less land disturbance, lower retaining walls, maintenance of a tree in the cypress tree in the right-of-way, and the fact also that the street, that this paper street does not continue on past this APN parcel number, perhaps most importantly, that point. Does anyone want to second that? Does that sound good? And also conditioned upon the placement of signage that we've discussed. And also,
Not required.
I don't want to say condition, and also understanding that no sidewalks will be necessary on this portion of the public right-of-way. Okay.
Well, and I just wanted to clarify, the signage would state, would be no parking on either side of the street. Right.
Similar to signage that exists in the Valimar district of Pacifica.
Chair, if I may clarify the motion that you made.
Please.
So, so what you're looking for is 20 foot of pavement, face of curb to face of curb, basically a curb and gutter on both sides, but no sidewalks.
Is that what we're?
I would agree with that. I wouldn't, I think that if there are developments in the other two parcels, that I wouldn't want to state the no sidewalk requirement as being evergreen.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking too. That's why I wasn't going to mention it.
So certainly with respect to this project specifically, the sidewalks wouldn't be required if we just limited the no sidewalks statement to the particular project under consideration.
Yes, yes. Okay, so limited to this specific item under consideration.
That's what I want to clarify, because in your previous statement, I thought, it gave the impression that it's for this particular section. So just because of this project, and then that in the future, it could be required that, okay.
To be absolutely clear, yes.
That is exactly.
I'm going to, does that work? I'm going to, was there any other? I'm going to entertain one quick comment from the applicant.
We got in trouble before not being clear with each other, so I would like to know what an uphill, we were planning on putting a retaining wall on the uphill, so I just heard for the first time we're talking about curb on the uphill wall, and I just don't know what that quite means, so I need some clarity there, so we don't walk away from here. And then the other is, I think you just said the signage would be similar to the ones in Valimar on the Brendas, and that would be in just the public right-of-way? That's what I'm understanding? I just wanted clarity, because we got so messy.
That's good. I think just what we're talking about tonight, just the public right-of-way.
Yes.
Chair, the need for curb and gutter, particularly the gutters, to make sure that the drainage is controlled. So that's the purpose of that. Now, with regards to the other question about the signs that are germane on in Peter Point and also at Valimar is specifically adopted by the council for those particular areas. However, for this particular one, you're looking at no parking. That's it, no parking. Not necessarily, because the signs that you were referring to earlier says no parking within 6 feet from the center line. But for this particular case, it's going to be a requirement for signs to be installed to state that there'll be no parking, particularly on both sides of the street.
Yeah, okay, we can.
Right.
I think, those parking signs in the Valimar district had the practical effect of knocking out parking on both sides of the street anyway. So that's why I thought that was my intent, no parking.
The applicants just said that they're fine with no parking on both sides. And
Excellent.
That's what I'm thinking I'm hearing from you. I'm still a little unclear why we're putting a curb on the uphill side. The plans show all the water going to the west side of the street. And I just, we're hoping to get clarity, but if we don't want to put this to rest, we'll hope for the best. But I don't understand why we're doing curbs. I don't even know what a curb looks like next to a retaining wall.
So
I just wanted some clarity, but if we can't do it, then we'll just try to walk away from here again and see how it works.
I understand that, but I think we're getting into an engineering issue that I don't think we're equipped to deal with now. So we're going to cross our fingers on that one, and hopefully that'll work out. Okay, so I have made the longest motion
We got it.
in Pacifica Planning Commission history. Does anyone want to second it?
I'll second.
Okay, I've got multiple seconds. Let's vote.
Can I ask a real quick question before we vote? I just,
Yes, yes.
so it really goes to the no parking signs. Does that actually, does that require council action? Does the council have to adopt an ordinance? And are we requiring the council to adopt an ordinance? And we really don't, do we really even have that power?
No, it's up to the city engineer.
Okay, excellent. Thank you. That was my question.
Okay, let's vote. Okay, and that passes 5-1.
I voted wrong. What?
No, it's the signs are messed up.
The signs are messed up. You voted no, right?
I voted no.
Okay, well,
Roll call.
should we do is it
correct?
It's still 5-1. So congratulations, you've gotten the clarity
Beyond control.
that you needed and the approved project. Is this something that would be subject to appeal? If it's just a clarification?
Ooh, good question.
That's a good question. I think technically it could be subject to an appeal, yes.
Anyone aggrieved by the action of the Planning Commission has 10 calendar days to appeal this decision in writing to the City Council. Okay, thank you. Onward. There was a consideration item agendized for tonight's meeting, but we, well, actually, it was agendized as a proposed action to continue that item until June 15th, 2015, and that was the determination that the Clara Parkway project is consistent with the capital improvements program. So again, that's continued till June 15th, 2015. Onward to communications, commission communications, anyone?
Congratulations on being chair.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you for a thrilling first meeting, all.
Excellent.
Really. Can't thank you enough. I want to thank the previous chair and the previous vice chair, myself, for such an able job and all the work they did over the last year. So thank you, Commissioner Brown and Vice Chair Gordon. Anyone? Yes, Commissioner?
I'm a little premature.
Okay. Onward to staff communications.
So I just had a couple updates. One, I wanted to let you guys know that the state has adopted some actually emergency guidelines for water regulations for brand-new homes. So I just want to let you know that we'll be implementing them. We are implementing them. They include requiring a water budget, encouraging gray water systems. Any irrigation systems need to have a moisture sensor, and there's a variety of other things. So that's something new that we're implementing. Staff's going to be attending the Coastal Futures Conditions Conference that's in Pacifica later this month. And also, there's a healthy planning webinar that's on the 11th. So if anybody's interested in attending a webinar from your desks, just let me know. I can forward that link to you guys. And then we are working with consultants on the next steps in the process of the general plan update. So I expect to have something to report back to you and to the City Council very soon.
Thank you. Before we adjourn, one thing I forgot to bring up in commission communications, actually it's a question for staff. I understand that there is a new store going into the old, or the Fresh and Easy store. Thank you, Commissioner Vaterlaus. And are we going to be seeing that come before the commission as far as anything?
We're checking on the approval process for that. It's very likely that it won't be coming back because it's a grocery like-for-like change out of a grocery to another grocery. But we are making sure that we're following the correct process for that.
So I would like to agendize one portion of it if I could, and it's the signage. We did discuss the signage for that shopping center, maybe, I don't know, 3-4 years ago. And it was, I think it was a beneficial exercise. The signage, I think, looks really good. And it was important, and we all considered it, and it was a fairly lengthy meeting. And so as far as that new store's adherence to the signage ordinance that we've got for that shopping center, I would like to agendize, if I could, or get that in front of us, just to make sure that it comports with the sign ordinance we've got for that shopping center.
So it was a sign program for the master sign program?
Yeah.
Okay, we will look into that.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, let's see. Motion to adjourn. Anyone?
So moved.
Okay, second? Commissioner Varlas, second. Let's vote. Unanimous. Thank you.
State of the art is on moisture detection.